Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something real tonight. Something we all feel but rarely confront. Love, attraction, the undeniable pull between two souls. Sometimes it's as clear as daylight. Other times it's buried beneath hesitation, fear, and pride. There's a man out there right now who sees you, admires you, but fights every urge to show it. Maybe it's a friend, a colleague, someone who walks into the room and suddenly the air changes. His actions speak louder than words, but his words, they stay locked behind doubt and hesitation. One day, he keeps his distance but can stay away. You've seen it, you've felt it. A man who acts like he's indifferent, like he's got no business caring, yet somehow he's always around. He moves like a shadow, close enough to be felt but distant enough to be questioned. He's not calling. He's not making the first move, but his presence lingers. It's in the way he turns up in places where you least expect but most need him. It's in the way his eyes find you in a crowded room, even when he's pretending not to notice. It's in the hesitation, the way he stops himself from getting too close, yet never truly walks away. This is the internal war of a man fighting his feelings. It's not that he doesn't care. If he didn't, he wouldn't need to create that space in the first place. Distance isn't always about lack of interest. Sometimes it's about fear. Fear of being vulnerable. Fear of crossing a line he's not sure he can return from. Fear that if he lets himself get too close, he'll lose control over emotions he's spent so long trying to suppress. Maybe it's his past that holds him back, wounds that haven't fully healed, mistakes he refuses to repeat. Maybe he's been burned before, and the idea of opening up again terrifies him. Or maybe, just maybe, he's already convinced himself that you are out of reach, that you wouldn't look at him the same way he looks at you, that the moment he takes one step forward, you'll take one back. So he hesitates. He keeps himself at a safe distance, just close enough to feel your warmth, but not close enough to be consumed by it. He becomes an expert in controlled interactions, friendly, casual, just enough to keep things from tipping over into something deeper. But here's the thing about love. When it's real, it refuses to be ignored. So even as he tries to pull away, something inside him won't let him. That's why you see him show up when you least expect it. That's why his attention, his energy, his presence still lingers. That's why, despite all the distance he tries to create, he still finds himself drawn back to you again and again. It's in the way his voice changes when he speaks to you, softer, more measured. It's in the way he listens, not just hearing you, but truly absorbing every word. It's in the small details, the things he remembers, the way he picks up on the little nuances of your mood, your habits, your thoughts. You see, love isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers in the way a man positions himself in your world. Sometimes it exists in the spaces between words, in the pauses of a conversation, in the moments where he could have left, but didn't. When a man keeps his distance but can't stay away, it's because his heart is already caught in a battle it wasn't prepared to fight. And the hardest fights, they're not against the world, not against circumstances. They're against the parts of ourselves that want to run when all we truly want is to stay. 2, he gets jealous, even when he shouldn't. Jealousy is a peculiar thing. It sneaks in quietly, often uninvited, and before a man even realizes it, it's already taken root. A man fighting his feelings will never openly admit it. No, he'll mask it under logic, under indifference, under a forced nonchalance that betrays him the moment you look a little closer. It's not in his words, but in his reactions. It's in the way his body tenses when you mention another man. It's in the way his tone shifts ever so slightly when he asks, "Who was that?" As if the answer shouldn't matter, but somehow it does. Maybe you're talking about a coworker, someone you ran into, a friend from years ago. Maybe it's as innocent as a casual conversation or a passing mention of someone else's name. And yet there's a flicker of something different in his expression, a hesitation, a crack in his composure. He'll try to brush it off, act like it's nothing, but deep down, something inside him has shifted. He knows logically, rationally, that he has no claim to you. He hasn't confessed, hasn't made his move, hasn't given you a reason to be his and his alone. But that doesn't stop the instinct, the primal reaction that tightens in his chest when he pictures you laughing at another man's jokes, when he sees you light up in a conversation that doesn't include him. It's not possession, it's something deeper. It's fear. Fear that someone else will step in, that someone else will see what he sees in you, that someone else will be bold enough to do what he hasn't done yet. So what does he do? He tries to control it. He won't say, I don't like him. No, that would be too obvious. Instead, it's subtle. He doesn't seem like your type. I've heard things about that guy. Be careful with him. He's not trying to sabotage anything, not directly, but his mind is at war with his heart. And this is how it manifests. And if you truly pay attention, you'll see it even in the moments he thinks he's hiding it well. The way he suddenly gets quieter when you mention another man, the way his humor turns sharp, sarcastic, dismissive, the way he finds a way to change the subject and move past it before it eats him alive. Everything from, because jealousy isn't always loud, it's the silence that follows, the distance he suddenly creates, the moments where he should be looking at you but won't, because the image of you with someone else is already playing in his head. Maybe he'll try to counteract it. Maybe, just maybe, he'll bring up another woman, someone random, someone insignificant, just to see if it stirs something in you the way he's been stirred. Not because he wants to make you jealous. No, that's not the goal. He just wants to know if you feel it too, if you'd react the way he does, if his presence matters to you the way yours matters to him. And when he sees no reaction from you, it unsettles him. He thought he was in control, thought he had a grip on his emotions. But jealousy has a way of unraveling even the most disciplined man, because the more he fights it, the stronger it becomes. The more he tries to act unaffected, the more obvious it is that he is. And the hardest part, he can't do anything about it, not yet. So he waits, watches, holds his breath every time another man enters your orbit, tells himself it's fine, that it doesn't matter, but it does. And the only thing scarier than feeling it is realizing that sooner or later, he won't be able to hide it anymore. 3, his eyes say what his words won't. His eyes tell a story his lips refuse to speak. You see, a man may choose his words carefully. He may guard his emotions with discipline. But his eyes, they betray him every time. They linger when they shouldn't, soften when he tries to stay firm, darken with something unspoken when he watches you without realizing he's doing it. You've seen it, felt it even, that fleeting moment when your gaze meets his, and for just a second, there's no pretense, no walls, no hesitation. It's raw, unfiltered, and full of something he's trying so hard to suppress. Maybe it's admiration, maybe it's longing, maybe it's a battle between what he wants and what he thinks he shouldn't have. But whatever it is, it's real. A man fighting his feelings will often say all the right things to keep his emotions hidden. He'll act like everything is casual, like he sees you no differently than anyone else. But his eyes tell another story. When you walk into a room, they find you first. When you speak, they don't just listen, they absorb. When you're lost in thought, he watches, curious about the world unfolding in your mind. And when you look back at him, catching him in the act, he looks away, fast, as if he wasn't just staring. And then there are the moments when he doesn't look away, when he holds your gaze just a little too long, when his expression shifts into something deeper, something heavier. It's in those moments that the truth slips through the cracks of his restraint. Because no matter how much he tries to hold back, no matter how carefully he crafts his words, his eyes can't lie. They light up when you laugh, dim when you're sad. They narrow when another man commands your attention, widen when you surprise him, soften when you're near. It's all there in the way he looks at you when he thinks you're not paying attention. And maybe, just maybe, his greatest fear isn't that you'll see it, it's that you'll see it and realize just how much power you have over him. 4, he pulls you close, then pushes away. One moment he's there, fully present, engaged, making you feel like you're the only person in the room. His attention is unwavering, his words thoughtful, his presence magnetic. He listens like your voice is the most important sound he's ever heard. He laughs at your jokes, shares pieces of himself he doesn't reveal to just anyone, and makes you feel like maybe, just maybe, there's something deeper here. And then just as suddenly, he's distant. The warmth in his voice fades. The texts slow down. The conversations that once flowed effortlessly feel forced, short, guarded. He's pulling away, creating space, as if something inside him is screaming for distance. And you wonder, did you imagine it? Was it all in your head? Did you misread the signs, or did something shift? But then just as you start convincing yourself to let it go, he returns. He reappears like nothing happened, slipping back into your life with the same effortless charm, the same familiarity, the same deep, knowing glances. Maybe it's a message out of nowhere, a joke only the two of you would understand, a sudden reminder that he hasn't forgotten you, not even for a second. You feel the pull again, the connection reigniting as if it had never dimmed. And for a moment, it feels real, solid, safe, until, once again, he retreats. It's a cycle, a dance of uncertainty, a war between what he wants and what he's afraid of. Because make no mistake, this isn't about indifference. A man who doesn't care won't go through the effort of holding on and letting go over and over again. No, this is something deeper. This is a man at war with his own emotions, torn between the undeniable draw he feels toward you and the fear of what it might mean if he gives in completely. Maybe it's fear of vulnerability, of losing control, of stepping into something unknown. Maybe it's past wounds whispering that love comes with consequences. Or maybe it's as simple as this: he wasn't supposed to feel this way, but now that he does, he doesn't know what to do with it. So he pulls you close when the feelings become too strong to ignore, when the need to be near you outweighs the fear. But the moment he realizes just how much you matter, how deeply you affect him, he panics. And in that panic, he pushes away, hoping that distance will erase what his heart already knows. But here's the truth. Distance doesn't erase anything. It only delays the inevitable. He supports you in ways that matter. He may not always say what he feels, but watch what he does. When a man is fighting his feelings for you, he won't express them outright, but his actions will give them away. He's the one who notices when you're overwhelmed, the one who steps in before you even ask for help. He listens, really listens, not just to your words, but to the emotions beneath them. He picks up on the little things, the way your voice shifts when you're tired, the hesitation in your tone when something is bothering you, the way your eyes dim when doubt creeps in. And when he sees it, he does something about it. Maybe it's offering advice when you need clarity, or maybe it's just sitting with you in silence, letting you know you're not alone. Maybe it's sending a message at just the right moment, a simple, "You got this," when you're doubting yourself. Maybe it's remembering your goals, your dreams, and pushing you toward them even when you feel like giving up. May not be shouting his feelings from the rooftops, but he's showing them in the way that truly matters. He's protective, not in a possessive way, but in the way of someone who genuinely cares. If you're struggling, he's there. If you need something, he finds a way to make it happen. If someone hurts you, you see the flicker of anger in his eyes before he even speaks. He wants to see you win, not just because he admires you, but because he feels something deeper, something he may not even be ready to admit to himself. He doesn't just support you in obvious ways, he supports you in the quiet, unseen moments. He pays attention, picking up on what you need without you having to ask. Maybe he remembers how you take your coffee and brings you one on a stressful day. Maybe he reminds you of your own strength when you forget it. Maybe he defends you in rooms where you're not present, making sure your name is spoken with respect. And here's the thing. He won't always let you know he's doing it. He won't ask for recognition, won't make a big deal about it. But if you look closely, you'll see it in the way he shows up, in the way he puts your happiness above his own, in the way he stands by you, even from a distance. Because love, even when unspoken, is always revealed in the way someone chooses to show up for you. 6, He's waiting for a sign. Maybe from you, he's standing at the edge, waiting, hoping, yet unwilling to take that final step. He's held back by uncertainty, by fear, by the endless possibilities of what could go wrong. And so he waits, not because he doesn't feel anything, but because he feels everything. You see it in the hesitation, the way his words sometimes falter when the moment between you grows too intimate. You see it in the way his gaze lingers just a second too long, as if he's searching for something, an answer, a confirmation, a sign that he's not alone in this. Because deep down, he's not just protecting himself, he's protecting the connection he's afraid of losing. What if he makes his move and you don't feel the same? What if he crosses the line and everything changes? What if this isn't the right time, the right moment, the right situation? So he tells himself to hold back, to be patient, to wait, but waiting is its own kind of torment. He watches for clues, for signals, for anything that tells him he's not imagining it, that the connection he feels is real. Maybe it's in the way you look at him when you think he doesn't notice. Maybe it's in the way your voice softens when you speak to him. Maybe it's in the way you lean in just slightly when he's near. He catches these moments, holds on to them, dissects them later in his mind, trying to decide if they mean what he hopes they do. And if he doesn't get that sign, he convinces himself to stay in the background, to keep his feelings buried, to let things remain as they are, even if it tears him apart inside. Because taking the risk means there's a chance he could lose you, and that possibility is something he's not sure he can face. So he waits. Maybe for you to say something. Maybe for a moment where everything becomes clear. Maybe for the courage to finally stop waiting. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about knowing the outcome. It's about being brave enough to take the leap, even when you don't. 7, he remembers the little things about you. He may not say much, but his actions speak volumes. He remembers things about you that most people wouldn't. The little details that slip past others, the passing comments you make without a second thought. He holds on to them, not because he's trying to, but because they matter to him, because you matter to him. Maybe it's the way he remembers exactly how you take your coffee without ever having to ask twice. Maybe it's how he brings up a story you told weeks ago, recalling even the smallest details that you had long forgotten. Maybe it's the way he notices when something is off, when your laughter sounds different, when your energy isn't quite the same. He picks up on these things, not because he's trying to impress you, but because he's paying attention in a way that most people don't. And it's not just the obvious things. He remembers your favorite song and plays it at just the right moment. He recalls that one dish you mentioned craving, and suddenly it's in front of you without you ever asking. He knows the movie that always makes you cry, the quote that inspires you, the small quirks and habits that make you who you are. He remembers the things that bring you joy, but he also remembers the things that bring you pain. He knows the name of the person who broke your heart, the reason you don't talk about certain subjects, the fears you hide behind a smile. He remembers, but he doesn't use them against you. Instead, he protects those pieces of you, treading carefully, making sure he never adds to the hurt you've already carried. It's in the way he subtly adjusts to what you need without you having to say a word. If you're feeling overwhelmed, he somehow knows to step in and make things easier. If you're struggling, he finds a way to lift you up. If you're cold, he offers his jacket before you even realize you're shivering. It's in these small, thoughtful actions that his feelings slip through, no matter how hard he tries to hide them. And sometimes you catch him. You say something offhandedly, not expecting him to remember, and then weeks later he brings it up. The realization hits you. You've been listening all along. Even in the moments when he pretends not to care, even when he acts as if he's unaffected, the truth is right there, woven into every thoughtful gesture, every small detail he remembers. Because when a man truly cares, he doesn't forget. Not the little things, not the important things, not you, he finds reasons to be around you. He may not come right out and say it, but if you pay close attention, you'll see the truth. He always finds a way to be near you. It's not always obvious, not always grand gestures or bold declarations. Sometimes it's as simple as lingering just a little longer than necessary, choosing a seat near you, or showing up at places where he knows you'll be. He doesn't need an excuse, he creates one. Maybe it's something as small as borrowing something he doesn't really need, just so he has a reason to talk to you again. Maybe it's asking for your opinion on a decision, even when he already knows the answer. He said he'll find ways to start conversations, keep them going, and stay in your presence as long as possible without making it seem intentional. And yet it is intentional. It's not coincidence that he always happens to be where you are, that when you step into a room, he instinctively gravitates toward you, that in a crowded space, his eyes still find yours. Even in group settings, he manages to position himself close to you. If someone else sits beside you, he'll find a way to shift the dynamic to make sure he's still part of your space. If you're speaking, he listens more intently than he does to anyone else. If you laugh, you'll notice he's smiling, sometimes before he even realizes he's doing it. And when you're not around, he notices. He might not say it outright, but his energy shifts. He looks for you, his attention divided, as if something or someone is missing. And when you finally return, there's that almost imperceptible ease that washes over him. As if the world has clicked back into place. He may not even realize he's doing it. It's instinctive, subconscious, something he can't control no matter how hard he tries. Because no matter how much he fights his feelings, one truth remains. He wants to be near you. He feels drawn to you in a way that logic can't explain. And though he may not be ready to admit it, his actions already have. As we reflect on the signs a man may show when he's fighting his feelings for you, it's essential to understand the complexity of human emotions. The heart wants what it wants, yet the mind battles with hesitation, fear, and past experiences. These signs, subtle as they may be, reveal a deeper truth, that love, at its core, is something to be discovered, nurtured, and sometimes feared. What's truly important to recognize is that these signs aren't just indicators of a man's inner turmoil. They are also reflections of his vulnerability. Every time he pulls away only to come back, every time he fights his feelings but remembers the smallest details about you, he is showing you how deeply he cares, even if he's afraid to say it. It's not about playing games or keeping score. It's about the complexity of human connection, where sometimes the silence speaks louder than words. For anyone listening, whether you are experiencing this uncertainty in your own life or watching it unfold in someone else, remember this: emotional battles are real. Love is not just about words. It's about actions, signs, and the courage to be vulnerable. If you're seeing these signs, it's because a person is trying to figure out what their heart is telling them and how their emotions align with their reality. And for you, whether you're the one holding back or the one being pursued, remember that you too deserve to be understood, seen, and appreciated for who you are, regardless of the pace at which love develops. It takes patience, trust, and most of all, the courage to not give up on yourself or on what could be. We all have our insecurities, our fears, and our own ways of guarding our hearts. But there's power in recognizing that sometimes the very thing we fear most is also the thing that can bring us the greatest joy. So, take a deep breath, keep your heart open, let the signs unfold naturally, and when the time is right, trust that the journey will lead you exactly where you need to be.